Hello, everybody. This is Johns Hopkins with Baltimore Heritage, and we're back with another of our 5-Minute Histories videos. And today we're going to talk about Hanlon Park, where I am today, here in West Baltimore. And I'm going to start by saying that if you're watching this video and you live in West Baltimore, odds are pretty high that you're one of the tens of thousands of people who, when you go to your kitchen and turn on the faucet, your water comes from Lake Ashburton, or the Ashburton Reservoir. And Hanlon Park is the park that surrounds the reservoir. In fact, when it was created in 1911, the park was called Ashburton Park. It didn't keep that name for very long, got renamed Hanlon Park, but we're going to get to that. Let's start our story in the 1890s. In the 1890s, Baltimore was growing pretty quickly, including growing westward. Neighborhoods like Walbrook and Garwin Oaks and Forest Park were starting to get filled up with people, and that meant a need for more drinking water. And eventually, in 1896, the city got serious and started scouting out a site. It took them a little while to do it, but by 1911, a little over 10 years later, they purchased property from the estates of three families, the Ohlers, the Williams, and the Vickers, and they put together a 100-acre parcel that became the drinking water reservoir and the park here today. In choosing a site, they were actually kind of choosy. They chose this site because it was uphill from a lot of the neighborhoods that it would serve. That was good for a gravity-fed drinking water system. But they also chose it for its ability to become a park. As the park board, or the water board, I'm sorry, noted in its report, it said that this area here, quote, lent itself well to parking and beautification. And mercifully, by parking, they did not mean automobile parking, but they meant turning a piece of property into a public park. And that they did. They turned it into the park here, and they went to the go-to landscape architects of the day, the Olmsted Brothers firm that had already done Wyman Park and Gwynns Falls Parkway, which is on the southern edge of the site here. And the Olmsteds came and turned this parcel into a wonderful park. There are a number of features that are still present here today that definitely have the Olmsted touch to them. One is the paths are curvilinear, no sort of rectilinear paths here, and they wind through stands of mature trees, like the stand that I'm here today in. The topography, they didn't come and scrape the topography down to a flat surface. They left all the rolling hills and had the paths follow along them. Even the roads are Olmstedian, if that's a word. They don't go through the park. They kind of curve around the park and feed into the Gwynns Falls Parkway, that green ribbon that connects Druid Hill Park with, eventually would connect with Leakin Park in the west. So those features are still here today. So the city was going strong on its landscape design, and then they needed a name. And I want to talk about this for a second because it's almost comical the way the water board chose the name Ashburton. One of their members was a gentleman named John Giddings, and he owned an estate called Ashburton, not too far from here. It was named after Lord Ashburton back in England. And so the park board said, well, we've got this colleague and he's got an estate nearby. So that's pretty good. That's got the name Ashburton, got it going for him. And then let me read to you a quote from their notes. They said, at the end of their meeting, they said, the name Ashburton sounded pretty good, and that was an additional argument for its selection. So, so much for the sort of rigorous cerebral thought processes that went into naming. It had a good ring to it and it was nearby. So that's how we got Ashburton. But the park did not stay Ashburton for long. In 1920, the city changed its name to Hanlon. And it was named after Lieutenant Joseph Hanlon, who was one of the first Marylanders to die in World War I. He was from Baltimore. In fact, he died on July 18th, 1918, trying to help a fallen comrade. The French, and he died in France, the French thought so highly of his valor that they awarded him, and I hope I'm going to pronounce this right, the Croix de Guerre, one of their military awards. And he was the first officer in the relatively new Army Chemical Warfare Service to die. And the French also honored him by naming an experimental chemical warfare station after him, which I believe today still bears his name. So that's Joseph T. Hanlon. But how did he get his name on a park here? Well, that really goes to his father, Edward, or Ned Hanlon. Ned Hanlon was a parks commissioner at the time in the 1920s. This is 1920 is when it got its name. At that time, he had retired from his baseball career. He was the manager for the Orioles in 1894, 95, and 96, I believe. All 3 years, they won the National League pennant. And in 1896, they won something called the Temple Cup, which was the precursor to the World Series. Some people called Ned Foxy Ned. Other people called him the father of modern baseball for his innovative strategies that he brought to the game. He went on to coach not just the Orioles, but a team called the Brooklyn Superbas. They were kind of a conglomeration of the Brooklyn Dodgers and the Baltimore Orioles. When we moved up to New York, they became, of course, the Brooklyn Dodgers. And he also coached the Cincinnati Reds. He went on into the Hall of Fame the same year as the other noted baseball great Earl Weaver. So he was a superstar. And he was on the park board, and his son had died in World War I. And at that same moment in history, the city was considering putting in a World War I memorial here. They had even engaged noted sculptor Hans Schuler to do the memorial. So it made sense to name the park after a fallen World War I hero. Unfortunately, the memorial part never took off, but the park kept its name, Hanlon. Over time, the park became a central feature in the surrounding neighborhoods. In 1921, it got a whole bunch of ball fields, football fields, baseball diamonds, tennis courts that were used greatly. In the hot summer evenings, it was a cool place to sleep, as memorialized in the movie Avalon. Some of you may have seen that movie. In general, it's been a place for the neighborhoods and for all of us in Baltimore to come out and enjoy some green space. I'm going to wrap up with what's going on here now in the park. The big deal now is called the Ashburton Tank Project, and that is per the Clean Drinking Water Act, the Federal Clean Drinking Water. As with the reservoirs in Druid Hill Park and in Guilford, the city is burying the drinking water, creating enormous tanks. This one, I think, will hold about 50 million gallons of water. And the idea is that they're going to bury this big tank underground for the drinking water. On top of it, create a new playground and green space for the neighborhoods here. And then the lake will continue as a lake, but no longer part of the drinking water system, so people will have access to it. I'm going to wrap up by saying that I sincerely hope that those plans come through. I will note that the original Ashburton Reservoir, the supposedly state-of-the-art waterproof water mains, leaked like crazy from the very beginning, causing significant damage and expense. So I hope that on the second round of drinking water upgrades here, we get it right from the very beginning. All right, thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.